Good afternoon, Dr. Dave. How are you doing, my man?
Good afternoon, Dr. Joe. We had quite a lengthy pause there. Wasn't sure if we were like just doing it for the sake of the intro or
No, I wasn't sure if you were like checking your makeup or what was going on, so I didn't want to
I did that
interrupt
this
your
morning. It's
flow.
all good.
Okay. So we want to welcome everybody back to the Journeys of Not So Ordinary People podcast. And I'm Dr. Joe Hamlett, and this is my co-host, Dr. Dave Peltz. And we welcome you to this episode. And speaking of episodes, we're going to talk a little bit about opening your mind to the possibilities. What do you think about that, Dave?
Well, I want to say you caught me off guard, but you didn't because we discussed the topic. But now that you've asked me, I'm kind of like, now I need to keep my mind open to the possibilities.
Absolutely.
So yeah, go ahead.
So since I introduced the topic, I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Dave so he can get us started on this topic. So go
Awesome. I
ahead,
like it a
Dave.
lot. So, keeping your mind open to the possibilities. That's a good one, Joe. We had discussed this just before we kicked this podcast off, and there's really a lot that can go into this one. So,
Yeah.
um, I think back to all the opportunities or many of the opportunities I was faced with in my life, and some of them I wasn't really expecting, and some of them were really great, and some of them were kind of like, well, wow, that's not what I expected, but there are possibilities within the things that we didn't expect or weren't even hoping to expect. And even though some of those, we're talking about being open minded, that even some of the things that we didn't want to happen, the not so good things, there's still, if you look, there's almost always a silver lining. So
Right.
being open-minded to those tough learning experiences is one thing that comes to mind. The other thing is, we've talked about being prepared and being proactive and goal setting in a lot
Right.
of our other podcasts, and that's where the other side of open-mindedness starts jumping into my mind for me is, you know you've done all this preparation, now be open to the possibilities. And I say that
Right.
because my military career was in law enforcement, and then when my military career ended, coincidentally so did my law enforcement career. I had to start over, so I had to be open to the possibilities.
Yeah.
And so I focused in one general kind of area. I was looking at defense, the defense arena. And then after I did that for 9 years, I realized I needed to be open-minded about other possibilities. And that's how I ventured into the tech sector and higher ed and a few other industries. And so there can really be some awesome lessons learned and some great benefits to keeping an open mind and just really broadening your mindfulness to the possibilities, to things that you hadn't even thought of before. The
Right.
phrase, thinking out of the box or outside of the
Right.
box comes
Yeah.
to mind. And, really, really digging in and to embrace the opportunities that are out there beyond what we're already thinking.
Right.
You talk to a peer or colleague or friend and say, hey, what are your thoughts on this? And they're like, well, have you thought about these things? And I'm like, well, no, not really. I haven't. And then I think about them and then explore the possibilities in that area. And it's kind of amazing to realize what's really out there when we get
Right.
outside of our own little,
Yep.
window of things. So those are my initial thoughts on the possibilities of open-mindedness, or
Okay.
mindfulness of open possibilities, or something along that line.
Now, those are kind of along the lines I was thinking too when you think of opening your mind to the possibilities, and it really, when people think, when I tell people I went back to school, and became a doctor and things like that, they immediately say, "Oh, you must be intelligent, you must be smart," and you finally reached your goal of being a doctor, all these things, and I have to really go back and say no, educate that wasn't what education was for me. Education, was opening my mind to the possibilities.
Yeah.
I was able to
Yeah.
gain, other perspectives, seeing things done differently, seeing things, received differently. So it, to me, that's what education, that education journey was for me. It was opening my mind to the possibilities because, you were saying, I was, while, going through life, everything, you did what you were expected to do. You get,
Yeah.
like I've said before, my expectation was to get a job, take care of a family, and that was really it. There was no description on how you get that done. So when I went back to school, I saw this limitless, uh, just vast horizon ahead of me of the possibilities. And that's the way I like to view that. That I went back to school initially just to get an associate's degree, but then I just started opening my mind to, well, what if I get a bachelor's? What if I get a master's? What if I get a doctorate?
Mhm.
And that way of thinking just continued to explode. I went from being an aircraft mechanic to first sergeant in the military, which is, working with people. And then from there, I went to that level and another level. And then down the road, I, eventually finished my doctorate, became an author, became a business owner, became an adjunct professor. Now we're podcasters.
Mhm.
And it was because we opened our mind to the possibilities. And,
Yeah.
and that's the beauty of this. And it goes back to, and I know we just talked about dreams in a couple episodes before. It goes back to that idea of being able to dream again, seeing
Yeah.
things that don't exist right now. But in your mind, you can see the possibility of whatever that is. And
Yeah.
that's why I get so excited. And that, me and Dave joke all the time about we don't know what we want to do when we grow up, because it gets you back in that mindset of being open to the possibilities. A lot of times we think, and like I said before, we have this idea of what we're supposed to do, or like Dave said before, we're in this box. Opening your mind to the possibility is about breaking out of that box. Stop being refined, or being held in this close proximity where your mind is ready to explode and go beyond that. And that's what the being open to the possibilities is all about.
Yeah, I'm glad you're pulling the thread like this, Joe, because it's starting to make me think a lot. And you know, I, yeah, it's just really amazing. You mentioned, being in the box and, getting out of that box and what's expected. And that kind of touches on some of the other podcasts that we've done about, what's the definition of success.
Right.
I
Yep.
mean, and we're all raised in a certain way and different ways, but
Right.
in those different ways, we're told this is what success looks like. This is what you need to
Right.
do. Here's your box. Here's your lane.
Yep.
And, many of us have heard in our careers, you have to stay in your lane, do only your job, don't venture too far because you're going to make people mad, or you're going to start doing their job, or just stay there, just do this. And it's like, why can't I explore these other areas? Why
Right.
can't I, dabble in some of these things to see if I like them, and understand how these things weave together? And that's one of the cool things that, about having the education and experience that Joe and I have. And it's not to say that higher ed is the, be all end all to everything, because it's not. But having the level of education that we do, there's really kind of two categories that are really kind of put out there. You're either a specialist and you're very narrow, but you know everything to the bottom of it, or you're broad and, kind of low to medium. So that's your generalist. So you're either a specialist or a generalist. And Joe and I are kind of in that generalist category. We're very much about understanding how the big picture comes together. And that's why when you open your mind to the areas just outside of your little box or your lane, it may ruffle
Yep.
some feathers out there, but you get so much more knowledge and understanding on how these things weave together, how your organization weaves together, how,
Right. Yep.
the actions of one department or team will impact positively or negatively another team, with
Right.
or without their knowledge. So, you know, that to me is hugely important, because there's a big need for that. Then one of the analogies or metaphors that I use is, the food in the kitchen is superior, but the ship is sinking. And the reason I say that is because the focus is so much in that one little area that you have the blinders on to what's going on around you and where the real help is needed. And
Right.
those areas for help are opportunities for growth for yourself. So be open to those possibilities, you know. So
No, you brought up a very good point, um, as far as being able to see the big picture.
mhm,
And I agree with you 100%. You know, the idea that you mentioned that you've been in different industries, military, academia, same for me. And, you know, a lot of people view it as you're not specialized or you don't know enough
yeah,
about this one
you're
thing. But
bouncing around too much. You're
right,
not
but
doing one
right.
thing.
But the reality is we have a broader knowledge of a lot of different things. And then
Yeah.
to kind of to your point, like you said, I can see the big picture in a lot of cases where some people, again, that are in a certain department or, you know, been doing the same thing for a lot of years, their, you know, their approach is kind of narrow minded because that's
Mhm.
really all they've been exposed to. And that's why I say, open your mind to the possibilities to see how those departments overlap or how
Mhm.
those departments interact. Even building a team. When I think about building a team, I want a team that represents the entire picture. You know,
Mhm.
I don't want to select people just like me or people that have the same experience because they weren't going to be limited on what we're going to be able to achieve or accomplish. But if I get put together a team with people from diverse backgrounds, experiences, education levels, I'm going to get a huge mix of, you know, knowledge and experiences that we can, you know, glean upon.
Yeah.
And so open your mind to the possibilities helps you see that bigger picture. Or again, identifying a picture that doesn't even exist yet
Yeah.
because you are putting all these things together that you know that you've experienced that other people have known or experienced and you're trying to create something like I said that does not exist yet. I mean, think about artists, musicians, typically they're creating something that doesn't exist today.
Mhm.
They've taken their experiences from the past, current, and then they've turned it into something that's new and
Mhm.
innovative. Again, if we think about being a kid again, and the kid tells you they want to be a, you know, an astronaut, and you tell them no, you can't be an astronaut, and you keep telling them that, then they have now closed their mind to the possibilities
Yeah.
because now they're being told I can't do that. They're placing me in a box. And that's really what this is all about is not being allowed to be put in a box, not,
Yeah.
you know, questioning things, asking, you know, things that don't look right, that don't, you know, in your eyes don't appear right. You said it before, defining your own idea of success. What does
Mhm.
that mean to you? So in some persons' eyes, that's their idea of success. And that's fine. But if that's not your idea of success, then you still should remain open to the possibilities of what
Yeah.
it could be.
And, you know, we just discussed the benefits of being a generalist, and I don't want to I want to ensure that we recognize those folks that are specialists too, because that's where our deep and robust research comes from on expanding the possibilities,
Right,
you
right,
know? Well, we've designed every rocket, narrow and deep. We've designed every rocket that's possible. We can't get to the moon. It's impossible. But then you have those handful of specialists that are like, we believe we can do it.
right,
And then they're the ones that find the way because
right,
they are keeping an open mind to the possibilities. What have they done? And you have to have a deep, rich,
right,
specialized knowledge for some of these areas that are very rote or very that have already been explored to 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 the lengths where people think that we've done all the possible research there is. There's nothing new to be developed or created, and yet there's always those pockets of people within those specializations that find new ways to do new things or new things and do new way and create the means to accomplish those new things. So there's benefits to both being a specialist and a generalist, and you need both, like a team. When
right.
you're developing a team,
Absolutely,
you don't want all
absolutely.
generalists, you don't want all specialists. You need a good blend. You don't want everyone to be super analytics on your team, because then nothing will get done because we're all over analyzing stuff,
Right. Right.
so um,
No, and that's a good point, because that's again, um, if we don't um, have that, you're right, grounded research, that the knowledge and information that's already there, then you feel there's no need to explore if we haven't captured everything we know today, and make sure we understand that, then we're allowed to go and look into the possibilities,
mhm,
because yeah, we've established that this is where we are today. Now if we want to advance, we want to move forward, we have to open our mind to the possibilities, because it doesn't exist. So we
yeah,
have to be willing to stretch a little bit to think beyond what's in front of us. What we can do today versus what we can do tomorrow.
right. And part of, and as we're talking about this, the something that rolls nicely into, you know um open-mindedness to possibilities is networking, because as much as we know what the knowledge and insight that we've gained as individuals, really those sparks, or some of those sparks, or many of those sparks, come from the synergy that's created through networking.
Right.
I know what I know, you know what you know, but when we start talking about things and, different podcast topics, there's a synergy that happens. And then all of a sudden, all these new ideas just start popping and
Absolutely.
sprouting up that we had never considered before,
Right.
because we're working and networking with each other and even other folks throughout the week. That we get some of our ideas from, the experiences that we've had from the past week or so. And it makes us start thinking about different things from different ways. And we get out of our box and start thinking about the possibilities and opening our mind. And so networking is a huge, huge piece to really most everything that we talk about. Like a lot of the things that we talk about, it's not just
Absolutely.
all these little silos. It's more like all these interwoven spider webs, if you will. They're just
Right.
all these different layers and the complexity. So there's more than one way to get there. And that's, another metaphor that we use is the long scenic route,
Right. Right.
or the one that's a little bit more direct. So
Right. No, that's a good point. Networking is absolutely a huge part of this, and that I think back, my LinkedIn network is pretty big, and people always ask, how do you get more people in your network? How do you get to know these people? And I always tell them I'm open to connect with just about anybody, because
mhm,
to your point, there's no telling what we may gain from that relationship.
yeah,
Just having a quick conversation, or, sending messages back and forth, and you start looking at things differently, because they're bringing a totally different perspective than you even considered.
yeah,
So I think that is a huge part of it, is again capitalizing on not just your experiences, but experiences of others. And that's why, I mentioned earlier about a team, building that team of, again, people with diverse backgrounds, people that bring something different to the table than you have.
right,
I think that's, again, part of that whole idea of seeing what you can gain as a collective versus you individually. Yeah, if you're going up against a team on a project, if you got a good team, more than likely they're going to blow you out of the water.
yeah,
But if you don't have, a good team, or an effective team, that one individual may be able to present something that the team can't come together with, because either they're, you know, uh, too many overlapping um, personalities and things like that, and you didn't get enough of a good mix on your team,
yeah,
and
yeah,
rather than being productive, you're mainly fighting amongst each other. So
yeah,
I think that is a huge part of it, is it's just gaining that collective mind, of all these experiences, everything that you bring to the table. And because I even thought about, and I've told Dave this before, I thought about doing a podcast, several years ago by myself, but I really struggled with that, because I thought, it's going to be one mind. It's going to be one person, one perspective. And so I like the idea of me and Dave working together on this, because we have similarities, but then there's also, enough differences, that
Sorry about that.
yeah, that
Rule
we
number one, silence your phone.
that we can kind of present different perspectives on different ideas. So I really
Yeah,
like that approach. So that yeah, that's a huge part of it. The networking piece, that ability to not only see, open your mind to the possibilities for you, but open your mind to the possibilities of interacting with other people and experiences
yeah,
and seeing what you can come up with as a collective.
yeah, and to keep going down that road a little bit, that's, and where I think you're going is the diversity of thought,
Right.
really.
Absolutely. Yeah.
There's the ethno-geo piece,
Yeah.
which is important, the different perspectives between individuals and the way that, their preferences and their inherent biases, not necessarily not bad biases, just the biases
Right.
that we've grown up with. I like vegetables because I grew up on a farm with vegetables, and
Right.
um, but that diversity of thought is really, another big piece, and really what we're talking about. Keep being mindful and of the possibilities that are out there, and if you can't
Right.
be open, or you're not open, or you've chosen not to be open to the diversity of thought and other people's experiences and wisdom and knowledge and experience, then you're really doing yourself a disservice, because as much as you and I are experts in what we know, there's still plenty out there that we don't know, and there's
Oh,
still plenty of
absolutely.
things that are going on that are very relevant to what we do in our area of expertise, that if we were to shut all those doors off and live in our own little cube, we would never know about it, and never be able to keep growing and expanding. And that's another piece of what this is. When we talk about um, keeping your mind open to the possibilities and diversity of thought, it's really about lifelong learning and growth. And I'm not
That
saying that you
that's a
have to do it, but just being open to the
Right, and that
possibilities.
was actually what I was thinking when you were talking about that, being a lifelong learner. That is a key to it. Yeah, just again, willing to accept and learn more and more. We've talked about this before, not just from our peers like me and you, but from other people, younger people, people more experienced in other areas. Just
Mhm.
again, that's what it is. It's just being a sponge, almost, reverting back to when you're a kid, a
Yeah.
baby, and you were at that time you were a sponge. Everything that was said, everything that was done, that
Yeah. It was
baby mimicked
you.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's the way that's why I feel giddy sometimes, like a kid, not knowing what I want to do when I grow up, because that's just it. There's
Mhm.
so many possibilities um that you can choose from. And
Mhm.
so your mind is constantly going, what's next? And that's why I say, me and Dave with this podcast, that was the same thing. It's just like neither one of us had done this. Never would have imagined we'd be, podcast host or co-host. And now we're so many episodes in, and it's like it's natural. Why wouldn't we do this?
Yeah.
And like, we already had ideas of what's next. Do we, you know, write a book? Do we, just all kind of things have come from just being on this
Yeah.
platform. So that's what this, like I say, and I think Dave said it earlier too. It's just about your mind is seeing so many things, and it's exciting because it is it's a wide open space, and you're
Yeah.
just like, I can fill this with whatever I want to.
Yeah.
And I think that's the beauty of the whole idea of opening your mind to the possibilities.
Yeah. And just to touch on the personal versus professional side, you know, being open to possibilities, we raised our son to be open to different types of food. And, I was raised, try it at least once. If you don't like it, call it a day, but at least you've tried it. And there's a few things that I've tried that I didn't like, and I've tried them more than once trying to find the one that I did
Right.
like.
Right.
I still haven't found a few of those things, but other things I've been like really surprised at how much I did like them. And, from a professional side, we've kind of been talking about that a little bit, pretty much the whole time. But, there's the possibilities are virtually limitless. And even if
Right.
you're an expert in what you do, there's still more that you can learn,
Right.
instead of just saying, nope, I'm only going to do it using paper and pen. Well, we have this neat thing called a calculator, and now it's turned into a computer, and then it's turned into a smartphone. So you don't even need a
Right.
computer on your
Yeah.
desk to do a lot of these things that used to take hours, you can do in seconds. So when we talk about possibilities, it's not just technology, it's also about with creativity,
Right.
again, diversity of thought, being open. It doesn't have to be formal networking or mentoring or coaching. It can just be peer to peer. It can be someone that you just meet. Just the other day, we had someone come out to do some service on our house, and I learned a little bit about HVAC, with our
Right.
AC unit.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm not going to tear that thing apart and, fill the freon or
Right.
anything like that, but at least I have a general understanding of what's going on and a few things that I can do.
Right.
So, um, it's just being open-minded is such a valuable tool to have in your professional development toolbox. So, yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah, so I again, just to kind of reiterate some of the things Dave said, it really is about, I mean, just like his example of learning a little bit about HVAC. Not that he's going to go and start doing that as a business, but
right.
just having a basic understanding of a lot of things is very important. Not again that you're going to be, you hear that phrase a lot, jack of all trades, but master of none, and that's really what open mindedness is just, you know having a little bit of information about a lot of things. And again, not to say that you're going to be specialized in any of those things, but you have enough knowledge that you can progress, that you can understand what's happening around you.
Yeah,
And I think that's very valuable in any setting. If
yeah,
you're in the professional environment and somebody says, hey, do you know how to do PowerPoints? Well, I did PowerPoints a couple of years ago. Let me see if I can figure that out again. But if you've never done PowerPoints, again, you're going to be limited on your ability to assist. So just something as simple as that, I do PowerPoint, so I take it for granted that I'm sure everybody does PowerPoints, and that's not
right.
the case.
Yeah,
But that's how simple, some of these things can be, that you're just opening your mind to learning something new. And I think you hit it right on the head. The whole lifelong learning piece is all part of that.
mhm,
And so I guess for me, that's the power in this, that I'm learning something new every day. Every time
yeah,
I sit in front of a computer, anytime I have a conversation with somebody, I'm learning something new every day.
yeah.
And
Being
that's why
open to what's available,
absolutely,
as small as it might be, that's still something that might spark something bigger later
absolutely.
on.
And I think Dave said it earlier too. If you don't take that approach, you're really limiting yourself, or you're actually putting yourself in your own box.
A
That
box within a box.
yes, because you've chosen to, not advance. Even say you're in the same career field or same job for a lot of years, and you choose not to continue to grow or advance, you're putting yourself in a box. And
Mhm,
so an opportunity comes up, you haven't learned anything, even though you've been doing that field for a lot of years, but you haven't expanded your knowledge. You haven't learned anything new. So, you've limited yourself on that ability to move forward.
yeah.
So before we get out of here, Dave, do you have anything else to highlight before we finish up on this topic?
Joe, I think between the two of us, we've done a great job today. Not to pat myself on the back, and a virtual pat on the back for you, but I think we've really addressed a lot of what we wanted to talk about, prior to kicking the podcast off today. And yeah, I mean, we've addressed a lot of different angles, for folks to think about. So I'm good.
Okay. Like Dave said, I think we have, we may have rambled in some cases, but it's just so exciting, and sometimes it's hard to come across.
Yeah,
But we both know what we're trying to say, and hopefully you've been able to understand some of that, what we've been trying to say too. Again, open your mind to the possibilities, and I'm going to say it for myself. For me, it makes me feel like a kid again.
yeah,
Just knowing that there's still, the sky is the limit. It's limitless. There's an open canvas out there that we can kind of put our mark on, in different ways. So with that, like Dave said, we've kind of filled this half an hour, so we don't want to continue. But it's been great again to have a great discussion to talk about uh, this topic. Open your mind to the possibilities. So we really thank you all for tuning in, whether it's YouTube or on the other platforms. We really do appreciate you taking the time out to, you know, take a listen or view this podcast. And if, again, we've said it, if there's anything you would like for us to discuss or talk about, please feel free to leave comments. Look us up on social media, uh, reach out to us.
Yeah.
And with that, we'd like to encourage you to continue being your not so ordinary you.